All right, the Louisiana Baptist Children's Home is celebrating its 125th anniversary. Gabby Ballou joins us live from the big celebration. And Gabby, tell us about what's going on.
Hey Jennifer, I'm standing inside the legacy room at the Children's Home where it just opened last week, and visitors who have been just coming through have been able to see the history of how the Children's Home has evolved. Now, former employees and residents of the home were invited to come to the celebration to see not only the legacy room, but to reminisce and to look at pictures from 1899 to now of the children whose lives have been changed. Effie Bailey, a former resident and employee of the home, explains how much the home will always hold a special place in her heart.
It meant security. I had whatever I needed. I had people taking care of me who cared about me, and I had friends that I still have. It was home, and it was a blessing.
So the celebration continues until 8 o'clock tonight and picks right back up at 7:30 tomorrow morning.